Amtrak, to be or not to be, that is the question. Amtrak is that semi-public corporation the Congress set up a couple of years ago to see if it couldn't save the long-distance passenger train from a dismal death. But Amtrak really doesn't operate the trains. The railroads that have been clamoring all these years to get out of the passenger business still do. All Amtrak does is funnel money to the 13 railroads in the Amtrak system. Since going into operation, Congress has given Amtrak over $200 million. And since that time, Amtrak has lost it all. Now, if you ask why the passenger train should not be permitted to die, conservationists will tell you it pollutes less than the automobile. Energy people will tell you it carries the most people for the least fuel. And nostalgia buffs will tell you it's a symbol of America in the glory days.
If you grew up in the 30s, perhaps you remember this was the way to travel. The most comfortable way to go long distances. A train trip used to be an elegant adventure. Well, the trains don't stop here anymore, nor do they stop very often in most places in America anymore. For in just 40 years, the passenger train in the United States has gone out of style. 20,000 trains a day have declined to less than 250. And there are some who believe that by the end of the 70s, except perhaps for the Metro liner from New York to Washington, the intercity passenger train will have disappeared altogether, along with the steamboat and the stagecoach. We wanted to see what train travel is like today in the U.S., so a while back we flew out to Indianapolis to board a train there bound for Chicago. There was a time when Union Station, Indianapolis, called itself the finest in the nation. 200 trains a day passed through here. Indianapolis was a vital link between the industrial East and the agricultural West, and it called itself Railroad City. Well, Railroad City has come on hard times. Just 6 passenger trains a day now take on their passengers at this Romanesque revival station. The place is bleak. That brave Amtrak banner seems to be whistling past the graveyard. A graveyard filled with expensive mausoleums. Dead places, really. On this particular morning, our train was coming in only 20 minutes late, but we learned it's not unusual for it to run over an hour behind schedule.
Amtrak, train number 51, the James Whitaker Raleigh, now loading for Lafayette, Kankakee, and Chicago, on track number 8. They call this train the James Whitcomb Riley, named after the famed Hoosier poet, and it's been making this run for about 30 years. Time was when Indianapolis folks used to take the Riley to Chicago. The trip took 3 hours, 50 minutes. They'd spend 4 hours shopping there and take the Riley back home again. It was kind of an adventure in a 10-car train. Well, today the Riley has just 4 cars. The roadbed is kind of miserable. The trip takes 5 hours, 30 minutes when the train's on time, and we're already 35 minutes late. Although Amtrak says that passenger traffic went up by 10% last year, on this train at least, passengers were sparse. The capacity of the Riley is 130, but only 35 people rode out of Indianapolis. And why would anyone want to make a trip that'll take at least 5.5 hours when it can be done in half the time by automobile, or in just 1 hour on a plane? Well, the reasons varied.
Well, we're an old railroad family, and we want the children to have the contact with the railroad, which we're afraid in the near future they won't have.
This is the most convenient and cheapest method of transportation for the children and I when going to see my parents.
Well, our children didn't want us to drive. We're getting older, and they worry about us, and they want us to either fly or come by train. He doesn't like to fly, but I do. So he said, we'll go by train, and here we are.
To run this train the 200 miles to Chicago, Amtrak says it costs about $5 a mile. To run a passenger bus costs less than $1 a mile. Why so much more on a train? Well, there is a conductor aboard and a trainman who helps him. Another trainman who acts as a baggage handler. In the almost empty Pullman car, there is a porter. And the dining car has a chef, an assistant chef, and 2 waiters. And up front in the cab, the engineer and fireman, who are relieved by another crew just 60 miles outside Chicago. For all this, the coach passengers pay only $8.25 apiece. Even if the train were filled to capacity, 130 people, the profit would amount to just about $100. On this day, as we said, there were only 35 passengers aboard. If Amtrak was going to get people to ride trains again, it would have to make them more attractive. But the fact is that when Amtrak set up shop, it owned no equipment at all. It had to buy 1,300 old passenger cars from the railroads. The newest car was 20 years old. So what Amtrak purchased was a legacy of neglect and decay. To get things rolling, they started overhauling the entire fleet. For the first time in years, passenger cars got a facelift, new ideas, new colors, new configurations. But the process was expensive, about $31,000 per car, and slow. By the end of 1972, only 600 cars had undergone any cosmetic surgery at all. It was commonplace to see broken down equipment still in service. Yet some progress has been made. The cars are cleaner and more comfortable. The white tablecloth service and the dining cars, which had been replaced by food vending machines, are back in style. Still, what matters most to passengers is getting to their destination safely and on time. And here on the James Whitcomb Riley, we were moving at a snail's pace. Mr. Levy, what in the world are we going so slow for?
Kind of the track conditions.
What's wrong with the track?
Well, the engineering department said they're not safe to run any faster than 10 miles an hour, and they put out instructions, and we have to abide by them.
Well, I would think that would drive the passengers up the wall.
Sometimes they get pretty discouraged.
Do you think that perhaps they're trying to discourage passengers from taking the train?
Well, looks that way. Somebody's trying to do something, but we just can't put our finger on it.
That somebody could be Penn Central, which actually runs the train. All Amtrak does is pay the Penn Central's bills. You see, Amtrak works this way. The participating railroads bill Amtrak for what they claim is the cost of running their trains. And they receive an extra 5% for what they say are extra costs. But nothing in the contract gives Amtrak the muscle to demand and get efficient service. And so the James Whitcomb Riley backs into Union Station in Chicago 1/2 hour late, 5.5 hours after it left Indianapolis. It's been a comfortable journey back into nostalgia, but the question remains, why should it take that long to travel less than 200 miles? Several weeks later, on a bleak winter day, we returned to those tracks and put that question to Senator Vance Hartke. He heads a subcommittee that oversees Amtrak. This time, the Riley was an hour and a half late.
Just spikes in my face. They almost pulled that nail out for you. There you go.
Senator, come on over here and take a look at this with me. Will you? Is this any way to run a railroad? You can pull the spikes out of a tie.
That's certainly no way to run a railroad, and I am absolutely as disgusted as you can be. Take Indianapolis to Chicago, ought to be able to do that in an hour and a half easy.
Correct.
But we don't. But you can't do it on a 10-mile-an-hour track. You can't do it on a track where you can pull the spike out, where the rail itself, you know, jumps back and forth even with a foot.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you mean that Amtrak is just a snare and a delusion? It's somebody's public relations joke?
No, not really. It's a sincere effort, I think, made by some of us in the Congress to try to preserve for America railroad passenger service.
Well, who wants to get rid of passenger service?
Well, I would imagine some of the railroad management does. They make more money out of freight service than they would out of passenger service.
Yeah. Louis Mank is chairman of one of the railroads that makes its profit out of freight, not passengers, the Burlington Northern. And he sits on Amtrak's board of directors. He got there by buying Amtrak stock. Not because he believed in it, but because he could take the purchase price as a business expense, a loss. Aboard one of his company cars, Lou Mank told us how he feels about Amtrak's future. How much did you pay for your stock on Amtrak?
$33 million plus.
And you carry it on your books right now at how much?
$1.
Why?
We wrote it down because we thought that was the value of the stock.
You think that Amtrak stock is worthless?
I do. In the context of the present time, it is.
You say in the context of the present time, you expect it's going to be worthless in the future.
I don't expect that Amtrak will ever be a profitable corporation. If that's what you're asking, yes, that's my answer.
So you feel that passenger trains, by and large, with the exception of in the highly populated corridors, should be permitted to die an honorable death, right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Quinn of the Milwaukee Road feels the same way, right? He's publicly stated that.
I assume so. Yes, I think that's so.
And Mr. Moore of the Penn Central feels the same way, right?
I would expect so.
Okay. This trinity, Menck, Quinn, and Moore, are on the board of directors of Amtrak, and Amtrak is committed to speedy and efficient passenger traffic. You see no conflict of interest there?
No, do you?
The man President Nixon appointed in April of 1971 to head up Amtrak is a former aerospace executive, Roger Lewis.
What about the railroad men on your board of directors who've been telling us that passenger service is obsolete?
Well...
Your own board of directors.
Well, they're speaking as citizens, not as members of this board.
Doggone it.
Or maybe presidents of their own railroads.
But they're railroad men.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is that that's their opinion.
Who is the consumer representative, the passenger representative of the board, who was supposed to have been appointed?
That slot is vacant now.
Why?
I don't know why, but I believe there's a name being proposed. I don't make that proposal.
I do not think the leadership in Amtrak is good.
Roger Lewis is not capable of running Amtrak?
So far, he hasn't been.
Why? What's wrong with him?
Well, I don't think he has that type of imagination, that type of dedication to really continuing this operation. I'm not sure he wants to keep it going. I'm not sure that he himself is dedicated to a continuity of passenger service for people.
Well, wait a second. What you're suggesting is that he's taken a job in order to preside over the demise of passenger traffic?
We have people who are in liquidation business, in business all through the country. And I think maybe Roger Lewis is one of them.
Mr. Lewis, you've been telling the Penn Central on that James Whitcomb Riley between Indianapolis and Kankakee, Illinois, you've been telling them to speed that darn thing up for over a year and a half. And they're thumbing their nose at you. And it still goes at 10 miles an hour certain spots.
Right.
Amtrak is powerless. You pay their bills, and yet you're powerless. Why?
Well, we're not powerless.
Well, they haven't responded to you.
Well, yes. When we complain about a slow order and if it doesn't seem to have a valid base or has a reason that can be corrected, we find that they'll take the corrective action. It's true, we do not have, under the contract that we operate under with the railroads, we do not have let's call it an enforcing provision.
There's no penalties that you can put on the railroads if they don't provide proper service.
No, the only criteria that we have contractually is that the quality of service must be as good as it was on the day that Amtrak took over.
Well, your annual report for last year shows that some trains have an on-time performance rate of less than 50%. Even your much-touted Metroliner is late a quarter of the time. No penalties. How come?
Well, they're not provided for under the agreement that we have with the railroads, and I hope I'm not giving you the impression that we're in any way satisfied, but as a matter of fact, that we are very, very dissatisfied with the on-time performance of most of the railroads that run our trains.
Senator, this belongs to the Penn Central, yes?
That's right. It belongs to the trustees of the Penn Central.
In other words, it belongs to a bankrupt outfit.
Right. And they're going deeper.
And they don't have the money to fix this up.
No, that's right. And won't have.
And the James Whitcomb Riley, therefore, is not going to run anywhere near on time as long as they don't have the money to put into that roadbed and so forth.
That's right.
Somebody's going to have to renovate the passenger equipment. Somebody is going to have to come up with the money to make it competitive with air travel and auto travel. Who's that somebody going to be?
Well, it's going to be the taxpayers as usual. And that whether we like it or not, that is the only place to which these railroads can turn. The fact of it is that the airlines today, the runways are not paid by the airlines. The people who operate the tower, who operate the controls, are paid by the federal government. Highways are built with tax money, and the buses use those.
Well, now, are you saying that perhaps the federal government should buy this right away and renovate it and lease it back to the railroads?
This has been an idea which I proposed. I do not know whether this is the solution, but it is a solution.
Face it, Mr. Lewis, nobody in the administration at this moment seems to feel that passenger railroads are all that important. You are way down on their list of priorities.
Well, I think that may be true in some cases, although I must say I have run across people there who feel very strongly about the importance of maintaining these right-of-ways so they can be developed as the problems arise.
Well, if so, they're not putting their money where their mouth is.
No, but I feel that we in Amtrak have a responsibility to the public to surface this argument so that there can be a debate about the role of railroad passenger service in terms of the total service offered to the public by air, by highway, bus, private car, and so forth. We spend tremendous amounts of money on transportation in this country, and a very small amount of that total directed to railroad passenger service would produce very significant results.
European trains like this one. Japanese trains like this one. We hear so often that theirs are so much cleaner, faster, more comfortable than ours. Why? Well, because their leaders, their governments, have made a national commitment to the passenger train. Senator Hartke told us that if we want this kind of service, the American taxpayer will have to tell our leaders so and put up the money. If not, the James Whitcomb Riley will take its place alongside the stagecoach in the catalog of American memorabilia.
It's hard to exaggerate the role of the train in the American story, or the romance of train travel, those iron horses galloping down tracks of steel. Why then has high-speed rail, so common in other countries, not tracked in the U.S.? An ambitious state-run project connecting LA and San Francisco has lurched, derailed, cost billions, and may never happen. One private company is betting that it can succeed where the public sector is not, but that too has had its bumps. As U.S. high-speed rail remains a mirage, a ghost train, it's become a stand-in for a broader question. Can America get its act together and still build big things? The very model of modern engineering, it hums across the fruited plains at a top speed of 200 miles an hour. It's revolutionized travel. It's a source of national pride. In Morocco. Here in the U.S., high-speed rail looks like this, hardly passenger-ready. America's hopes for its first high-speed rail were kindled in 2008, when California voters approved a ballot measure for a train connecting Los Angeles to San Francisco in less than 3 hours. The estimated price tag, $33 billion. Completion date, 2020. It would cut pollution, revitalize local economies, clear gridlock. Status update. Today, the state's high-speed rail authority is preparing to lay its first tracks at roughly the same cost. Only slight course correction here. Instead of LA to San Francisco, it will run 1/3 of that distance, connecting, wait for it, the metropolis of Bakersfield and Merced, population 96,000. Oh, and when will it open? 2033, maybe.
I think that the California high-speed rail nightmare is the probably quintessential example of government waste and mismanagement.
You say this needs to stop.
Needs to stop.
Congressman Vince Fong, a Republican from Bakersfield, sits on the House Transportation Committee. He says that when California voters first approved high-speed rail, the promise and price tag were more marketing campaign than realistic projection.
We're now in 2026. There are no trains. There's no track laid. It's a complete bait and switch.
If I vote for a mansion in Malibu by next year and someone says, actually, you know what, in 5 years we're going to have a doghouse in Modesto, How did things go so off the rails?
The business plan that was put out in 2008 was very theoretical. This is what we think is going to happen, and it became very clear that they didn't have the specifics worked out.
This project.
On that point, management doesn't disagree. Togh Samashakin is California's Secretary of Transportation, and Anthony Williams, a rail authority board member. Both are relatively new to the job, left to answer for their predecessors.
There were mistakes made. Some of the criticism on this project, I think, are very fair.
What happened?
I don't think the voters fully understood, and neither did we in the public sector, what it was going to take to actually get this project delivered.
To get the necessary political buy-in from the whole state, the plan called for the train to run inland, threading the farmland of the Central Valley. Yet the rail authority hadn't answered basic questions, like precisely where it could lay down its tracks, what's known as right-of-way.
3,000 parcels had to be negotiated just for the segments that we're working on today in the Central Valley.
It seems to me one farmer doesn't want high-speed rail going through his field, and you've got a guy that can gum up the works for a long time.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes in these processes.
More snarl. California's exacting environmental regulations, which triggered all manner of reviews, lawsuits, and delays. As anyone who's renovated a home knows, delay adds to price. So do the high U.S. labor and construction costs, at least compared to many other countries. And while the federal government contributed modestly under the Obama and Biden administrations, the burden fell largely on the state.
When construction started, was the financing there to complete this rail?
It wasn't. Yeah. Let's be real. We had a lot to learn, and we had a lot of growth to do. And, it's arguable whether, we should have been clearer about that.
By 2019, costs ballooning and the timeline years off schedule, bipartisan political pressure mounted. Newly elected, Governor Gavin Newsom said this in his first State of the State.
Right now, there simply isn't a path to get from Sacramento to San Diego, let alone from San Francisco to L.A.
Under Newsom, who didn't respond to repeated interview requests, California decided to focus on that initial Central Valley segment, a route few clamored for and fewer are likely to ride, though the ultimate goal remains connecting Northern and Southern California.
When you have a project like this and when the budget no longer permits you to finish it the way you wanted to, you start cutting off your arms and legs.
Lou Thompson helped found Amtrak in the 1970s and until 2024 sat on California's high-speed rail peer review group.
We've heard people say time to cut bait. We've heard people saying what happened in the past is the past. Failure is not an option.
Failure is always an option.
Is that what's going to happen here?
No, I don't think so. But I think what will happen in the short range is that they will cut back and do the best they can with the money they have available.
Here outside Fresno in California's Central Valley, one of the few signs of concrete progress, literally, structures like this. Locals here jokingly refer to it as their own Stonehenge. Ideally, these bridges and viaducts will one day be used to support California high-speed rail. But for now, these are curiosities in a field, monuments to promises that haven't been met and plans that haven't been executed. Ironic, because American rail was once the world's envy. In the 1800s, the U.S. government oversaw the birth of the Transcontinental Railroad, stitching the country together as it expanded westward.
We turn to the future.
In the 1950s, the Eisenhower administration decided that the transportation vanguard was off the tracks, creating and critically continuously funding the interstate highway system.
And the family car is in tip-top shape,
fueling the world's proudest car culture. Meanwhile, Japan's famous bullet train opened in 1964, and today more than 20 countries have high-speed rail, generally defined as cruising at 150 miles an hour or more. Yes, Germany and France and China, but also Turkey, Indonesia. Egypt has broken ground.
The obvious question there is, how can it be that we can't get it done and they can get it done, right? We know we can do this. It's an economic engine, right?
Mike Reininger is managing director of Brightline West, a private company that believes it can achieve what California hasn't.
Oh, wow. Next stop, Zurich. This is like a European train system.
This train, which opened in 2018 and runs between Miami and Orlando, hits top speeds of around 125 miles an hour. Not quite high speed, but close. It's akin to a beta test for Brightline's next project, a bullet train connecting LA and Las Vegas in just over 2 hours, a trip that can take 5 hours by car.
Brightline West will be true high-speed rail, first time in the country, and we'll operate at speeds of about 200 miles an hour maximum.
Out west, Brightline is solving the right-of-way issue by running on the median of the I-15 highway. Construction has already begun on some of the station structures. The plan is to start service in 2029.
What are you telling people to get them out of their cars or getting them to avoid the airport?
It's more enjoyable, it's safer, it's reliable. This really is all about changing people's behavior.
You don't think this car culture is intractable? It's so hardened and it's so much a part of the American psyche, it just can't be cracked.
I don't think so at all.
Cultural questions aside, Brightline's Florida trains run at street level through crowded neighborhoods. And according to numbers compiled by the Miami Herald and local public radio, more than 200 people have been hit and killed by the trains in the near decade since operations began. Brightline says that running rail in the desert out west, where track crossings won't be at street level, will be a safer proposition. Then there are the finances. The stratospheric costs of building and running a rail line vastly outstrip revenues. Analysts have downgraded Brightline's debt to junk, raising questions about private rail as a business.
To what extent, big picture, do you worry about the future financial viability of Brightline?
The business has built slower than we originally expected it to build. We thought we would be carrying more passengers today than we are. The business is in fact growing month over month, year over year. That's a great thing. That solidifies in our mind the viability of the business.
Brightline's West Coast project has already received some federal funding and is hoping for a $6 billion loan from the Trump administration.
If you look around the world, for the most part, the infrastructure systems are funded by the public sector.
You do see a role for government here.
Absolutely. We welcome it.
Back in California, the Rail Authority insists state funds can cover the cost of the Central Valley leg. As for the rest...
Just to be clear, as we speak right now, are the funds there to complete LA to San Francisco?
The entire amount of money we need, not there today. But do we believe we can get those funds to get the project done? Absolutely.
How much do you estimate it's going to cost to connect high-speed rail San Francisco to LA?
Today, we estimate with the right optimization, just over $125 billion. I think $126 billion is the current estimate for that.
That's more funding than Amtrak has received in its history and still leaves a shortfall of roughly $90 billion.
That's a big gap to fill.
It is a big gap to fill, but again, we have an understanding of how to get there and to fill that gap.
A gap the authority hopes to fill with a new plan to cut costs, lure private investment, and connect to bigger cities much sooner. But there's another challenge to building anything today. The swirling winds of a political climate in which one party pushes and the other reflexively pulls. Remember Gavin Newsom's pessimism? In recent months, he's championed the project.
This is not just a transportation project. This is about reimagining the future of this region.
Meanwhile, in 2025, President Trump canceled $4 billion in federal grants for the train, swiping at a political nemesis in the process.
Did you ever hear of Gavin Newsom? He has got, that train is the worst cost overrun I've ever seen.
In a statement to 60 Minutes, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy said the administration is in favor of high-speed rail, but this project has, quote, wasted billions in taxpayer dollars, yet delivered nothing.
Can this be done without help from the federal government?
This initial segment, we believe so. The ultimate 494 miles of building this out without the federal government's help will be challenging. There's no doubt about that.
Is this a non-starter to build a project like this without federal funding?
Well, not only can't it be done, it shouldn't be done. Because a lot of the benefits of the project, the reason why you build a project is public. Pollution reduction, congestion reduction, improved safety, comfort, reliability. All of those things are public benefits.
There are other ideas for U.S. high-speed rail, say Dallas to Houston, but nothing else in the building stage. leaving that uneasy, overarching question.
Morocco has high-speed rail, and Serbia and China and Japan and Western Europe. Why don't we? What's your simple answer?
Well, the simple answer is they've decided they want to do it and pay for it, and we haven't.
You think we will in our lifetimes?
I don't know. I'm dubious. Absent a national political will to work with the states to create some of these systems, I think it's going to be, in, of course, my lifetime, almost certainly not, but maybe yours, I don't know.
New York City is a place where attitude and strong opinions are in the DNA. New Yorkers might not agree on much, but there's one thing on which millions of them do agree. The subway is a mess. Trains are packed, breakdowns and delays are routine. Some say it's gone off the rails. After an actual derailment last year injured more than 40 people, the governor declared a state of emergency. When it first opened more than a century ago, the New York City subway was considered a feat of American engineering. Now, it's another example of the country's ailing infrastructure. Luckily, there's a man with a plan, an Englishman in New York, who proposes the city's largest infrastructure expenditure since the 1950s. More on that in a moment. First, if you have never ridden the sprawling New York City subway, welcome aboard. When the trains are moving, there's no better way to get around New York City than on the subway. These 400-ton behemoths crisscross the underbelly of the city, zipping through a web of tunnels deep underground and on elevated tracks high in the air. Catch one in the right light, and it can look like a model train running through a toy cityscape. There's more than 600 miles of track, uptown, downtown, out to the boroughs. Like the city itself, the subway never sleeps. It runs 24/7. Nearly 6 million people ride the trains each day, often accompanied by a soundtrack for the mad dash to the doors. The cost at the gate, $2.75. For that fare, sometimes you get a show, whether you want it or not. Other times, a view, the Empire State Building. There, in the distance, the Statue of Liberty. And here on the subway, the huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Ridership is near a 70-year peak. But after years of neglect, deferred maintenance, and financial mismanagement, the system can't handle the strain.
Please stand by.
Last year, passengers got trapped, desperate on a broken-down train for almost an hour in sweltering heat. Earlier this year, a ceiling collapsed on a platform in Brooklyn. One passenger suffered a concussion. In September, torrential rains poured inside a Manhattan station. It all adds up to a mosaic of misery, exacerbated by the heat, the rats, and incessant delays. Enter Andy Byford, a world-renowned Mr. Fix-It for troubled subways. He's the new president of transit for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, shorthand the MTA, the state agency that runs the trains.
This has to be the mother of all transit challenges.
It is. And the way I look at it, Bill, is someone has to take this on. You know, if every transit professional said, oh, it's too tough, I'm not going to risk my career in going there, nothing would happen. I'm prepared to give it a go.
He's certainly got the credentials. Byford grew up a train enthusiast in Britain in the city of Plymouth. He worked his way up in the London Tube, ran mass transit in Sydney, and most recently led a turnaround in Toronto. The MTA brought him on board in January to stop the hemorrhaging and resurrect the system.
I pinch myself sometimes because how did this spotty kid from Plymouth suddenly end up running New York City Transit? But it's a dream.
Well, some people would call that a nightmare.
When I left Toronto, there was a mix of people saying congratulations or are you crazy? But I like a challenge. If we can turn this around, then it will be the most satisfying period of my career. I mean, it will be the pinnacle.
Byford seems undaunted. He proudly wears his name tag for all disgruntled commuters to see. He expects to be held accountable. Like everyone else down here, he just wants the trains to run on time.
I'm Andy Byford, I'm the president of Transit.
With his friendly neighbor approach, he's that rare executive who does his own market research, routinely popping up unannounced to query customers.
How do you find the service? This is what I like to see.
Motivate workers.
Aim high.
I will.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for what you do. How are you?
And take stock of the subway.
You know, we've got to up our game and get better at the basics. Number one.
And if all that glad-handing weren't enough,
excuse me,
he also doesn't mind getting those hands dirty.
You really do. Just pick up the trash.
Absolutely. I'm not going to walk by that. So things like that.
He's fastidious down to the last crumb.
Things like
trash.
Yeah, get rid of it. I don't want to see unclean stations or messy stations.
Good luck on that one.
Yep. A group of maintainers.
Half-eaten bagels are the least of his worries. Byford was hired to shake up the tired old system. He crafted a grand modernization plan that calls for hundreds of station renovations, thousands of new subway cars, and more state-of-the-art computer signal controls that can run trains faster and more frequently.
Sounds like you're going for broke.
I've said in the past that's what we have to do, not to tweak this system. That it needs way more than that. It needs to be a comprehensive, top-to-bottom modernization of every aspect of our operations. Why shouldn't we be on a par with London, with Hong Kong, with Shanghai, with Singapore? This is New York, for goodness sake.
But the MTA's track record is not world-class. Computerizing just one line took about a decade. Byford says with his planned efficiencies, he can upgrade nearly the entire system in that amount of time. And that would be the easy part. The hard part, how to pay for it. He calculates his plan could cost a whopping $40 billion.
How are you going to come up with that kind of money?
Well, I mean, I leave that to smarter people than me. I leave that to the politicians.
But the politicians are squabbling. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio wants to raise money by taxing millionaires. Governor Andrew Cuomo by charging vehicles squeezing into congested Midtown Manhattan. If money and politics weren't enough, Byford says he's going to need a third thing, the patience of New Yorkers, who will have to put up with subway lines shutting down for repair.
Any one of those things would be next to impossible to achieve. How are you going to achieve all three?
By British charm. It will not be quick, it will not be cheap, and it certainly won't be easy. So my message to New Yorkers is there's no gain without a bit of pain. This will be worth it.
Tell that to the 400,000 people who take the L train every day, which runs between Brooklyn and Manhattan. The line is facing an imminent 15-month shutdown for repairs. Riders gave Byford an earful.
So my question is,
how would I get to work?
It's hell right now.
One track on West 4th.
The most ambitious element of Byford's plan is ripping out and replacing the antiquated signaling system that controls traffic on the tracks. This is what he inherited, equipment that's been operating since the Great Depression. This machine, more than 100 years old. We saw operator Rakia Spady move switches on the tracks around her station by pushing and pulling its antique levers.
This is 2018, and this thing was built
Before we were born.
long before.
Long before. But I call old trusty. It's moving the train.
In this age of GPS, this low-tech map marked the approximate location of nearby trains.
So you see how that green dot is up there behind the blue dot? It's still in transit. So it's moving into the station, and now he stopped.
But you don't know exactly where on the track that train is. No. This is New York City. They don't know exactly where the trains are at any given time in the subway system.
Yeah, that's what we need to transform, and it's about accelerating towards a modern signaling system. That would give us precise, absolute identification of where trains are, and it would enable you to move trains up safely closer together, ergo more trains.
The old-fashioned system requires intensive care. When parts break, which at their age happens often, this busy repair shop springs into action. Like doctors, mechanics examine the patients. Some sound like they're on their last breaths. Many of the companies that made these components are long gone, so workers here have to manufacture their own replacement parts.
I have 50,000 employees working with me as a big team. We've got old processes, old systems that we use, and yet my miracle workers keep that going every day.
34th Street, Haverhill Square, Bronx. Change can't come soon enough for frontline employees like train operators and conductors who face an increasingly aggravated public.
It's a lot that we deal with.
We brought together a small group of veteran workers for what turned into a group therapy session. Melvin Wright is a third-generation train operator.
Pulling into a station, people tapping their watch at me, reminding me we're late.
That's real life stuff. That's what goes on.
Cheryl Nicholson is a conductor of 29 years. She says there's no shortage of bad behavior and bad attitudes.
I used to cry.
Because of what people would say to you.
People were so mean.
And they say it's gotten worse. In August, passengers pummeled a conductor in Brooklyn after the train was forced to skip a few stops. No one here excuses the violence, but we were surprised to hear this.
They're frustrated, and I get it.
They have reason to be frustrated?
They do have a reason. If your job depends on you to be there, and your boss said, this is the third time, Mr. Whitaker, what are you thinking? Oh, that conductor's going to get it.
It was the MTA.
We get it.
Nothing irritates the traveling public more than delays. On Andy Byford's watch, on-time performance has ticked up slightly, though many riders say they haven't noticed. Byford says he's focused on the basics. He's using $800 million in emergency funds from the state to shift maintenance into overdrive on the tracks and in the garage, where subway cars are being overhauled at the fastest pace in a decade. Remember Rakia Spady's 100-year-old clunker? Her equipment is getting a long-planned upgrade.
That's a copy. It looks good on the board.
Of course, we can't do a story about the subway without hearing from passengers. To get a quick read on their unvarnished opinions, we went to the MTA's futuristic-looking Rail Control Center, where workers monitor and manage train traffic system-wide. There, we met Haley Dragoo, a social media millennial who works in
the Twitter division.
The Twitter division.
The Twitter division.
The Twitter division gets about 2,000 tweets a day, many from irate passengers.
What's the purpose of having a schedule if you never abide by it?
But most of the tweets are from people who just want to know why they can't get to school, work, or home on time.
We just kind of try and put ourselves in these people's shoes and try and answer them as best we can and as accurately as we can. And then we hope that made their day a little better, or at least more clear.
The subway riding public is kind of fed up right now.
And I get that. So our job is crystal clear. We need to turn this around for New Yorkers. And I absolutely want New Yorkers to start feeling by the end of this year, it's definitely getting better.
By the end of this year?
By the end of this year.
Wrenching this marvel of the 20th century into the 21st will take a virtuoso performance. New Yorkers are an impatient lot. They want things fixed yesterday. Andy Byford knows he's on the biggest stage before the toughest crowd on earth.
You've got a lot on your to-do list.
Yeah, one or two things. But that's what I love. It keeps me busy. And the upside is also I get to live in New York. What's not to like?
There are a lot of people in the United States right now who think the country is falling apart, and at least in one respect, they're correct. Our roads and bridges are crumbling, our airports are out of date, and the vast majority of our seaports are in danger of becoming obsolete, all the result of decades of neglect. None of this is really in dispute. Business leaders, labor unions, governors, mayors, congressmen, and presidents have complained about a lack of funding for years. But aside from a one-time cash infusion from the stimulus program, nothing much has changed. There's still no consensus on how to solve the problem or where to get the massive amounts of money needed to fix it. Just another example of political paralysis in Washington. Tens of millions of Americans cross over bridges every day without giving it much thought, unless they hit a pothole. But the infrastructure problem goes much deeper than pavement. It goes to crumbling concrete and corroded steel, and the fact that nearly 70,000 bridges in America, 1 out of every 9, is now considered to be structurally deficient.
Our infrastructure's on life support right now. That's what we're on.
Few people are more aware of the situation than Ray LaHood, who was Secretary of Transportation during the first Obama administration, and before that, a 7-term Republican congressman from Illinois. He is currently co-chairman of Building America's Future, a bipartisan coalition of current and former elected officials that is urgently pushing for more spending on infrastructure.
According to the government, there's 70,000 bridges that have been deemed structurally deficient.
Yep.
What does that mean?
It means that they're bridges that need to be really either replaced or repaired in a very dramatic way.
They're dangerous.
I don't want to say they're unsafe, but they're dangerous. I would agree with that.
If you were going to take me someplace, any place in the country, to illustrate the problem, where would you take me?
Well, there's a lot of places we could go. I mean, you could go to any major city in America and see roads and bridges and infrastructure that need to be fixed today. They need to be fixed today.
We decided to start in Pittsburgh, which may have the most serious problem in the country. Our guide was Andy Herman, a past president of the American Society of Civil Engineers.
From up here, you can see why they call it the City of Bridges.
Yep. Between the highway and the railroad bridges, there's many of them.
And most of them old.
Most of them old. They're nearing the end of their useful lives, yeah.
There are more than 4,000 bridges in metropolitan Pittsburgh, and 20% of them are structurally deficient, including one of the city's main arteries.
This is the Liberty Bridge ahead.
Yes.
An important bridge for Pittsburgh?
A very important bridge for Pittsburgh. A connection from the south to the city itself and then to the north.
It was built in 1928 when cars and trucks were much lighter. It was designed to last 50 years. That was 86 years ago. Every day in Pittsburgh, 5 million people travel across bridges that either need to be replaced or undergo major repairs.
One of these arch bridges actually has a structure built under it to catch falling deck. See that structure underneath it? They actually built that to catch into the falling concrete so it wouldn't hit traffic underneath it.
That's amazing.
It all comes down to funding. Right now, they can't keep up with it. 300 bridges become structurally deficient each year in the state of Pennsylvania. That's 1% added to the already 23% they already have. They just can't fix them fast enough.
Pennsylvania is one of the worst states in the country when it comes to the condition of its infrastructure, and Philadelphia isn't any better off than Pittsburgh. 9 million people a day travel over 900 bridges classified as structurally deficient, some of them on a heavily traveled section of I-95. Ed Randell is a former Democratic governor of Pennsylvania.
How critical is this stretch of I-95 to the country?
It's the nation's #1 highway. 22 miles of it goes through the city of Philadelphia. There are 15 structurally deficient bridges in that 22-mile stretch, and to fix them would cost $7 billion to fix all the roads and the structurally deficient bridges in that 22-mile stretch.
Randell says no one knows where the money is going to come from, and this stretch of I-95 has already had one brush with disaster. In 2008, 2 contractors from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation stopped to get a sausage sandwich and parked their cars under this bridge.
And fortunately, they wanted that sausage sandwich because they saw one of these piers with an 8-foot gash in it about 5 inches wide. And they knew automatically that this bridge was in deep trouble.
The section of I-95 was immediately shut down and blocked off while construction crews buttressed the column with steel girders. It was closed for 3 days, creating havoc in Philadelphia, but the city was lucky.
I mean, it was unbelievable. It's so fortuitous.
And if they hadn't wanted a sausage sandwich?
there's a strong likelihood that bridge would have collapsed. These all are tragedies waiting to happen.
The I-95 bridges were built in the early 1960s and are now more than 50 years old, the same vintage as the I-35 bridge that collapsed in Minnesota back in 2007, killing 13 people and injuring 145. The antiquated Skagit River Bridge in Washington State that collapsed last May after a truck hit one of the trusses was even older. And it's not just bridges. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, 32% of the major roads in America are now in poor condition and in need of major repairs. Yet the major source of revenue, the Federal Highway Trust Fund, which gets its money from the federal gas tax of 18 cents a gallon, is almost insolvent. Former Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood says it will go broke by next spring unless something is done.
That was the pot of money that over 50 years helped us create the best interstate system in the world, which is now falling apart.
Why? How did it get this way?
It's falling apart because we haven't made the investments. We haven't got the money. The last time we raised the gas tax, which is how we built the interstate system, was 1993.
What has the resistance been?
Politicians in Washington don't have the political courage to say this is what we have to do. That's what it takes.
They don't want to spend the money, they don't want to raise the taxes.
That's right. They don't want to spend the money, they don't want to raise the taxes. They don't really have a vision of America the way that other Congresses have had a vision of America.
LaHood says public spending on infrastructure has fallen to its lowest level since 1947. And the U.S., which used to have the finest infrastructure in the world, is now ranked 16th, according to the World Economic Forum, behind Iceland, Spain, Portugal, and the United Arab Emirates. It's a fact that's not been lost on the most powerful economic and political lobbies in the country, who believe the inaction threatens the country's economic future. Big corporations like Caterpillar and GE say it's hurting their ability to compete abroad. And at a Senate hearing earlier this year, Tom Donahue, president of the generally conservative U.S. Chamber of Commerce, voiced strong business support for raising the gas tax for the first time in 20 years.
First, let's start by having some courage and showing some leadership. For once, let's do what's right, not what's politically expedient. Second, let's educate the public and your fellow lawmakers.
He was joined by Richard Trumka, president of the AFL-CIO, who said that every $1 billion spent on transportation infrastructure would create 35,000 well-paying jobs.
If business and labor can come before you united on this issue, and we are united on this issue, despite our sharp disagreements on a variety of other matters, I think that should tell everybody something and tell them very loudly.
But it was not heard during the midterm elections, where there was virtually no public debate on infrastructure, and that has barely changed in the weeks that have followed. We wanted to talk to Pennsylvania Congressman Bill Schuster, the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, and made numerous requests over the last 5 months for an on-camera interview. All of them were declined. We did the same with Michigan Congressman Dave Camp, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which has to come up with the money to fund transportation projects. We met with the same result. But we did talk with one of the committee members, Earl Blumenauer, a 9-term Oregon Democrat. He says the last time Congress passed a major 6-year transportation bill was in 1997. Since then, there have been 21 short-term extensions.
I've actually been trying now for 44 months to at least get a hearing on transportation finance on the Highway Trust Fund that is slowly going bankrupt. And we've not had a single one.
Why can't you get a hearing?
It has, to this point, not raised to the level of priority for the Republican leadership. Although, in fairness, when the Democrats were in charge, we had a few hearings, but not much action.
So you see this as a bipartisan failure?
Absolutely. The Bush administration, they had 2 blue ribbon commissions about infrastructure finance that recommended a lot more money and additionally the gas tax being increased. We couldn't get them to accept being able to move forward. Since President Obama's been in office, there has been, to be charitable, a lack of enthusiasm for raising the gas tax.
And the problems with transportation infrastructure go well beyond roads and bridges and the gas tax. There's aviation. A shortage of airport runways and gates, along with outmoded air traffic control systems, have made U.S. air travel the most congested in the world. And then there are seaports. When a new generation of big cargo ships begin going through an expanded Panama Canal in another year or so, only 2 of the 14 major ports on the East Coast will be dredged deep enough to accommodate them. There are more than 14,000 miles of high-speed rail operating around the world, but none in the United States. In Chicago, it can take a freight train nearly as long to go across the city as it would for the same train to go from Chicago to Los Angeles. But perhaps the most glaring example of neglect and inaction may be this sad little railroad bridge over the Hackensack River in New Jersey. It was built 104 years ago and is, according to Amtrak President and CEO Joe Boardman, critical to the U.S. economy.
This is the Achilles heel that we have on the Northeast Corridor.
How much traffic goes over it every day?
It's almost 500 trains a day. It's the busiest bridge in the Western Hemisphere for train traffic, period.
And what kind of shape is it in?
It's safe, Steve, but it's not reliable, and it's getting less reliable. It's old. Its systems are breaking down. There's an inability to make it work on a regular, reliable basis.
Boardman says the Portal Bridge is based on a design from the 1840s and was already obsolete shortly after it was completed in 1910. It's a swing bridge that needs to be opened several times a week so barges can pass up and down the river. It takes about a half an hour. The problem is it fails to lock back into place on a regular basis.
And what kind of problems does that cause?
It causes trains to stack up on both sides. And actually, when a train stacks up here, it can stack up all the way down to Washington and all the way back up to Boston. This is a single port of failure. That's one of the biggest worries we have on this corridor, is these single points of failure.
Amtrak's president says the bridge has to be replaced. The design work has already been completed, and the project, which would cost just under $1 billion, is shovel-ready.
If Congress wants to do something now, build this bridge. It's ready to be done. It's been ready for 2 years. Build it. It's tangible evidence that they can really get something done.
It's less a case of wanting to get something done than coming up with the hundreds of billions of dollars needed to do it. There's no shortage of ideas from Democrats or Republicans who suggested everything from raising the gas tax to funding infrastructure through corporate tax reform. But there is no consensus and not much political support for any of the alternatives, as Andy Herman told us last summer when we were flying over Pittsburgh.
You're sitting there at these committee meetings. They seem to agree with you. Yes, we have to make investments in infrastructure. Yes, we have to do these things. But then they come around and say, well, where are we going to get the money? And you sort of sit to yourself and say to yourself, well, we elected you to figure that out.